Nintendo can be a weird one with its spin-offs or new franchises. One minute they are making random things like Pikmin, and the next they are making absurd spin-offs like Luigi's Mansion, and the next they are making safe, but hugely improved, sequels like Super Smash Bros. Melee. They are an odd one, and Battalion Wars is just another example of this. Developed by Kuju London, Battalion Wars is a spin-off of the Famicom/Advance Wars series by Intelligent Systems, and sees the gameplay change from turn-based strategy into whatever this is. I guess a third-person shooter/RTS hybrid. It's definitely unique, but unique doesn't always cut it. Was it wise to change the first console Wars game in a dog's age to a completely different genre? Was Battalion Wars a direct hit, or was Kuju London's command point captured? Battalion Wars sees us take the role as a commander of a small battalion as you help the frontier forces repel the evil Tundra soldiers. Things go like you'd expect, with you winning every single battle, until things are overturned in an obvious twist when another group, the evil country of Exylvania, shows up and causes the former enemies to join forces against a bigger threat. I guess. It's basically as simple as that. The biggest thing to point out is that each nation here is a gigantic walking stereotype of a real-world one, with Frontier being America, Tundra being Russia, and the very evil folk of Exylvania taking the role of Germany, mixed with Transylvania for good measure. The story is basically nothing, but it takes you through the game, doing what it was made to do. As mentioned earlier, the game is a third-person shooter that was bred with an RTS. Who you control is whoever you want, aka the right man for the job. Your makeup of the battalion you command changes depending on the mission, so you need to use what you're given to get the job done. You select a different class of unit that you want to interact with using the C stick, and a press of the Z button will transfer you to them, allowing you to control them. When in control, the first thing you'll notice is that you have tank controls, even if you aren't a tank. Other than your odd movement, you press the L button to lock on, the R button to aim freely, press B to jump or dodge if locked on, and press the A button to shoot. Of course, you can also order your units around instead of being in direct control. With the press of the X button, you'll toggle between sentry mode, causing the units to stand in place and defend the zone, attacking whoever comes into view, and follow mode, which will do what it says in the tin. If you press the Y button, you'll tell the units to move to where you are pointing, or, if locked on, to attack whoever you are targeting. You can also choose which particular unit to hop into, or just check their health by moving the C stick up or down when a unit class is selected. While the AI isn't perfect, your battalion will do an admirable job defending themselves, though it is up to you to keep matchups in your favor as your troops will attack everything that crosses their path. What do I mean by matchups? Well, that's also what it means. Certain units are more effective against other units. In AI-controlled hands, it usually is certain death to send an ineffective unit against an effective one, so you need to be aware. This is where your strategy comes into play, as you can order entire classes around, meaning you can leave the bazooka veterans behind while you're fighting some rifle units, who would normally slaughter them. You'll also find yourself behind the wheel of vehicles or aircraft, and they perform fairly similarly, just with different movements. Ground vehicles are fairly loose, causing them to get caught in things quite easily, and the aircraft are constantly moving, making it a challenge to keep a target on your enemies. You also get a big map of the action that lets you spy on the enemy, seeing what's up ahead and see where your units are, letting you swap to them right away. You'll use these skills to take objectives or destroy all enemies, whichever a level tells you to do. It's all fairly simple, but it all comes together with the unique gameplay and varied units to make something fairly interesting and very fun. Now, this is a GameCube game from a relatively unknown developer released in 2005. Battalion Wars isn't going to win any awards for its visuals. Now, it's not bad looking, but it is quite basic and the environments can look a tad barren. The music is also pretty standard fare for a game about war, but it is catchy enough on its own. There aren't a lot of environments, sadly, with this war taking place in 4 distinct nations, 3 of which you'll see in this video. There are a handful of small, short cutscenes, but most of the story is told via static images of characters' faces shown with dialogue, so that's kind of disappointing, but at least the voice acting is good. It's as big of a stereotype as the nations they're representing, but they are fun enough, with everyone doing a good job with their characters. One of the more standout things about the game visually is the amount of personality each unit has. It's a cartoony style that just makes things more enjoyable. The units even die just like Pikmin do. Though that part is odd for sure. The most impressive part of this game on the presentation or tech side is the fact that the entire map is active at all times and often has things going on even when you aren't around. You can swap to someone on one side of the map from the other side, and after a short trip to them, you are immediately in control. It's impressive to have control over a whole battalion that might be split up across the map, even so much as swapping between infantry, vehicles, and aircraft without so much as a hitch. It's fairly smooth. Now, the performance isn't perfect, dropping here and there, but for what it's doing on the mechanic side, it's very well done. Of course, there are some things that failed to meet their objective, hurting the entire battalion. Firstly, the controls are just odd and hard to get used to, causing you to mess up something you were surefire going to do. Second, the aircraft and vehicles just control way worse, and vehicles that aren't tanks just feel useless. They are more suited for particular duties, and if you don't use them for those duties, they either die instantly or just don't pull their weight. As mentioned before, the performance takes a hit here and there, but that's an insanely common thing at the time, so I won't hold it against them. The biggest issue I have with the game are the difficulty spikes. The game doesn't really ramp up in difficulty. You'll be having an easy time, coasting along and enjoying the unique gameplay, and then all of a sudden you are hit over the head with an insanely difficult mission that requires multiple retries. It's incredibly frustrating and really hurts enjoyment once you're impaled on that spike, especially since you can't replenish units unless that mission says you can. Though this and the other issues don't hinder the game entirely, as it's still fun and very unique. When the smoke clears, Battalion Wars is a solid spin-off from a good series. Despite it not being the most technically impressive game at the time, it looks well and performs well enough for what it's doing, and it carries with it an incredibly unique gameplay. Swapping from unit to unit in order to use the best tool for the job is pretty satisfying, and it always feels good when a plan comes together. The game's fun gameplay, varied units, and charm will always bypass the silly controls and brutal difficulty spikes. It's a very enjoyable experience, and it still remains a unique game, even this far out. If you want to give a different take on an RTS a try, I'd recommend tracking this one down, though the sequel on Wii might be a tad easier to find. The Frontier and Tundra forces secure themselves a 7 out of 10 victory. The units they lost will never be forgotten, and neither should this game.